Every minute of rest you spend in between sets adds up to 100 hours per year in the gym just resting. And most of that isn't actually building you any more muscle. So today I'm going to break down three things. Number one, I'm going to explain what rest actually does to you and your body. Number two, I'm going to address some common misconceptions. And thirdly, I'm going to tell you the exact rest periods you need for all different types of lifts without wasting your life in the gym. Firstly, we have to understand what rest actually does. So most people think that it's the stress, it's the time under tension that builds muscle. But this is incorrect. What builds muscle is the mechanical tension that you face. And if you're to go from set to set way too quickly, you're having a lot of this metabolic stress, but you're reducing the amount of mechanical tension you can apply. If you did a set of bench and then 30 seconds later you hit another set of bench, you're not going to be able to do the same number of reps, meaning you're going to apply less mechanical tension and therefore get less gains. So what does this rest actually do? Well, think of it like a phone charger. What you're doing when you're resting in the gym is you're replenishing your ATP supply. This ATP helps you push the weight. It's basically your energy source. And likewise, like a phone, it may take, a few minutes to get to 10%, or maybe it takes half an hour to get to 80%. But past that point, it takes a long time to get fully charged. And likewise, when you're taking rest in the gym, you pretty quickly, within 60, 90 seconds or so, are up to 85% of your max. It's just that it takes 3, 4, 5 minutes to get to that 100%. So it's really about finding a balance. Think about it like this. Rest doesn't build you muscle directly. It just protects the amount of reps that you can do. Secondly, we have to address some common misconceptions that people often have about rest periods. First one that they'll bring up is they'll say, all the bodybuilders 20, 30 years ago, all those big guys, they use really short rest periods. They chased the pump, and that's how they got so big. Well, that's just like saying, vegans live longer, for example. I mean, being vegan doesn't necessarily make you live longer. It's just that vegans are going to be more health conscious. They're probably not going to smoke, probably not going to have fried food. They're going to pay attention to their health, exercise, all of that. And it's just simply correlation. Blasting gear, have great genetics, spend, most of their life in the gym, and they do everything they can to achieve this goal. That doesn't really mean that their short rest periods were what's exactly helping them get so big. The second misconception that causes many people to support this low rest time is that they believe that it spikes your hormones, and this causes extra growth. This is true. After you hit a quick set, your testosterone, growth hormone, IGF-1, yada yada, all of these hormones do in fact spike. They peak for a very short amount of time if you have very low rest, but this doesn't actually cause more muscle growth. In fact, they've done some elaborate studies on this. I won't get into too much detail, but it's essentially been 100% disproven. So this is just not true. So before I get into the optimal rest periods for each specific lift, I want to address one thing, and that's this whole rest period thing is not about getting the most amount of gains. It's about maintaining 90-95% of the gains while cutting your time in the gym in half. So if you were to rest, say, 6 minutes in between sets, sure, you might be able to get the most amount of growth possible if there is any growth to be gained. It's just that you would be spending hundreds of hours in the gym every year just resting just for that extra kilo, that extra, half a pound really of lean mass. So here it is as follows. For heavy compounds, meaning very close to your 1 rep max, 1 to 6 reps, for example, on something like bench, deadlift, barbell rows, you're going to want to rest a whole 3 to even 5 minutes in between sets. This is because it's going to tax pretty much your whole body, these movements are, and you're really going to need all that time to replenish enough ATP energy to hit the necessary mechanical tension for growth. There are other movements such as moderate compound movements where you're hitting, 7 to 12 reps on something like bench, deadlift, squat, etc., etc. And for this, you can do a little bit less rest, maybe even 2 to 3 minutes, because these higher reps aren't necessarily as fatiguing on your whole body. For all of the isolation, accessory work, and finishers, you can usually get away with about 60 to 90 seconds of rest in between. And with all of this mentioned, it's important that I remind you of just one more thing. Look, I used to spend, 2, even 3 hours in the gym because I just take so much time in between my sets. But when I finally cut down to the protocol that I've just listed, and I took, half as much less rest in between my sets, I still saw the same results, but my workouts were more efficient, they felt more focused, and most importantly, I saved a ton of time in the gym. Stick to the shorter rest periods. If you learned something, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.